My rooms are getting better. So now I'm facing the river, and there's a huge dinosaur's sculpture. So I booked a hotel for another 3 nights. Man, tried to get out of it. I even emailed my temp agency. I said the management of the site is saying that weekends are mandatory in November because they have a deadline. And of course it's extra pay, so the money is good, but I said I did 7 days last week and now it's 5 days, so I've been without a day off for 12 days. Like, is it really mandatory? Can we somehow get out of it? I just want to go home, you know, relax for a couple of days. And they said the staffing agency checked with site management, and they said, yeah, unless you have some kind of an appointment, you know, with a doctor or something, or DOT, you know, or some kind of emergency, they would prefer everybody, especially equipment operators, to be on site. But the good news is that, again, it's a short day. It's only 7:30 to 4, so time flies by quickly. So I just checked out this morning, Friday, because I was not sure if I'm staying for the weekend. And then around lunchtime I heard from the staffing agency, so basically, yeah, I have to spend the second weekend here. And so got a room at the same hotel. Just practice a little bit on my Gemini. I'm stuck on this waltz. I cannot move past the waltz. That's the next one. So I love this little book. It's for kids. Palmer Hughes accordion course. Super easy, super light. So imagine I'm already doing the waltz, even though it's like two notes on the left, 2 notes on the right, but it sounds so good, you know. I really like this accordion. I don't want to sell. And check this out. They even gave me a little kitchen area over here. Not sure what I'm gonna cook, but wow, even have plates and glasses. Interesting. I might use one. I have a bottle of wine for the end of the week. But the main story of today's, okay, we gotta check the expiry. Oh yeah, still in the green. Good. I'm gonna read the instructions later. Not sure what happened here. I didn't touch them. They were like this. I just grabbed one. Yeah, one was here. Like, why is it on the floor? Not sure. Probably the cleaning lady was a very short stature and she couldn't reach these. Well, we're gonna help her out somehow. And they always do this at this hotel. They always do this crazy stuff. I don't know what the virtue of that is, but pretty clean, you know, pretty clean hotel. Even though of course it's very old. But the main topic of today's video is, once again, the old wisdom has been proven correct. You know, haste makes waste. And we have about I don't know, 15, 20, probably close to 30 light equipment operators, as they call us. Basically skid steer operators. And then the separate class is guys that drive zoom booms, you know. Man, I tried to lift 2 of these crates, you know, because usually when they come in on a truck, these crates, they stack on top of each other. And usually we just carry one, right? But they're tied down. And I was trying to lift 2 of them. My whole bobcat like starts, you know, the stack starts tilting and the rear of the bobcat goes into the air. Basically the wheelbase is too short, even though it's not light. It's like 10,000 pounds, you know. But those zoom boom guys, they have a very long wheelbase, and on big machines they can lift these, a stack of 2, like easy. I see they do it all the time. So those guys are separate. And then of course we have the big wheel loader that I tried for one day and failed, according to the reports but we have a couple of relatively young guys that, you know, are very good with the machines. You know, you can see that this is not their second month, like in my case. So they've been doing it for at least a couple of years, you know. So they're very fast, they're very efficient, but some of them are also overconfident, and they always try to, you know, because they're bored, right? So they try to drive at fastest speed, you know, possible. And on a skid steer, I check with my speedometer app. It's 15 clicks an hour. That's the max it'll go, 15 kilometers an hour, so roughly 9 miles an hour. And these are the guys that, you know, when we do sand, let's say, you know, the first spot, right, when you fill up the trench, first spot is you have to put 2 to 6 inches of sand on those cables at the bottom there. And these guys will pick up sand, and, you know, when I come in, I switch from high gear into low gear. Like there's a button on a joystick, right? So that I can pick up full bucket, because with high speed, there's not enough power, you know? And so I switch to lower gear, and I, you know, do like this, you know, lift the arms, and only then I lift the bucket, curl the bucket. And so my bucket is like overflowing, you know? I always have a bunch of material in there. And then, of course, I'm driving back. I want to keep all this goodness in the bucket. I don't want to lose it, you know. So I drive slow because there's potholes everywhere, right? And I bring basically 1.5 buckets to the trench. Now, compare this to these experienced guys. They fly into the sand pile at high speed, pick up whatever they can, and and drive at maximum speed back to the trench. And you can see like there's sand everywhere, you know. Like by the time they reach the trench, they have, I don't know, 0.8 contents in the bucket from what they picked up, and they didn't pick up much in the first place. I remember one crazy guy, one of these guys also, you know, young, experienced, always in a rush. He was passing me. Like we were tasked with putting sand in one trench, and there's a sand pile here, and the trench is maybe 20 meters away, not that far. So I would go in slow, pick up the full bucket, you know, take time. This guy flies in at high speed, and then when we're driving, I could not believe it. I'm thinking, what? We're driving back, and again, it's pothole upon a pothole, right? Especially on the skid steer. There's no springs, no, you know, it's very rough, and it's not just for the operator. Forget the operator, but the bucket, and you spill the entire all the things, right? This guy passes me. He flies. We go in the pile together. I go slow. I turn around. I go back. He passes me on the way to the trench because the opening is narrow. Because there's trenches over there on both sides, and he always tries to zoom by me. Like, what's the point? So he spills half of the sand, you know. So these guys, they're just, I guess they cannot drive slow, you know. They cannot take care. And then we have this other guy, or had until today, also one of these, you know, race car drivers, you know, always everything fast, you know. Once he got stuck in a trench, tried to cross a trench, and the rear of his machine just sank. So, and then today he calls me, like, you know, I start my day, my job is in the morning, before lunch, I take care of all the generators, right? There's 3 very important generators that power some electronics, and the main power lines are not connected yet, and so without them it would be like cold in there, right? And that's bad for all these resistors and switches and stuff like that. So these generators, they supply power, and they all run on diesel. And so there's 3 of them, and then there's a light tower, the gatehouse, that also supplies heat to the security guy's shack, you know. Without that generator, he would freeze in there. And I think there's another one. Yeah, there's one more. We have a couple of fancy toilets. that are actually heated, you know, like porta potties, but they have a connector in the back there, and you just put a small generator there, hook it up, and like inside it's like, you know, Florida. Much better than regular ones, which are cold, you know, and smelly after a few days. And so that's what I usually do. I do these 5 or 6 generators and light towers. Oh, and now they also have these, what they call them, frost fighters. Frost fighter. It looked like a piece of a huge pipe, and there's a small engine there and a big tank of diesel, and they hook up a big tube, like a flexible pipe, you know, and connect it where they want heat to go, like cables, you know, like a foundation of a post or something like that. Very handy machine. It's like creates so much, you know, heat. And so I took care of those. I think I did I fueled up, I topped up like 4, you know, so I did 3 generators, 4 frost fighters, two light tower generators. And then my phone rings, and I was still in the process of doing this. My phone rings, and this one of these race car driver kids, he says, "Hey Sergey, they asked me to take care of the excavators, like fuel up excavators. And I hear that you're doing generators. Like, you want to switch? You want to do excavators and I'll do the generators?" And like, first I would have to explain to him where all the generators are, what to fuel, right? And I said, no, because, you know, I was given this job by a supervisor, you know. So generators are more important in the morning than excavators. Because most excavator guys, they can walk their machines. We have 2 fuel islands, you know. They can walk there, but most of them, if they work too far, they don't want to do it because, you know, in an excavator it takes a long time, you know, because they're very slow. And so I told this guy, yeah, no, I said, you start with excavators, and I'm gonna finish my generator shortly, and I'll join you. Like, what area you want to start on, and then I'll start on a different area with excavators. And he told me like he'll start in the south, and I said, okay, then after I finish the generators, I'll start in the northern part of the site. And so didn't hear from him. So I finished the generators, asked a couple of I filled up one guy. I saw a bunch of excavators in the field. I went over, and only one guy said he needed fuel. No, two guys. So I filled them up, and this young kid shows up, and I said, everything is okay here? I said, and he says, yeah, I'll go back to the south section. I said, yeah, you go ahead. And then I thought we were done, so after lunch I dropped my my tank and went back to that storage area where we have all these crates, and where the other day the guy told me I can move them, basically take them from this storage area and put them in the field, because that's where eventually they will need them. And so I started doing that, you know, by myself. Easy peasy, except you have to tie those crazy bands, because the boxes come in like a stack of 2, and there's I don't know, 15, 16 very strong green bands, you know, like half an inch wide. So you cannot use your hands, you know, because they're very tricky. So I use my knife. $12 Canadian Tire. Thank you very much. And so I was doing that, and then that supervisor who's in charge of these crates or boxes, he says, oh, Sergey, that's probably enough of that. Can you go into the field, into another area, and move them, let's say, from, you know, area B to area C? And I said, okay. So I went over there and picked up the first crate or box, and my phone rings, and it's another supervisor who's in charge of excavators and, you know, equipment. And he says, hey Sergey, are you busy? What are you doing? We need help over here. We have an emergency. I said, well, this guy told me to start moving boxes from this area to another area. He says, well, if you could, get away, I'd appreciate it. We just need you to grab a tank, and there's 3 excavators here that are messed up. And please make sure, and that phrase a bit surprised me. He says, make sure the number on the tank says 1202. The code for dangerous goods, diesel, 1202, not 1203, gas. I'm like, okay. This is not my first rodeo. I've been fueling up these generators and excavators, I don't know, for 3 weeks now. This became kind of like my permanent job in the morning, my task. And the supervisor's happy because he knows that every day everything will be filled up, like these critical generators. And so I said, okay, I'll go grab my tank and see how much fuel I have, and he gave me the area where these machines were, and he says, you'll see a service truck. So basically they broke down. There's a service truck, and you'll see 3 dead excavators. They all need fuel. Okay, so I went, I grabbed my tank that I always use, because that one has a long wires. So basically when I come to a machine with the tank in the front, I just parked it as close as possible. Then I take out the wires, and they're long enough to reach to my engine compartment in the back, and just hook up to my battery. Actually, I hook them to, I think, to a starter and then ground, and it works. But with previous tanks, I always had to drop the tank, then turn around back to the tank, because the cables were too short. But on this one, the supervisor told me, he says, hey Sergey, you might want to try stay hooked to the tank, because the cables should be long enough and they reach, and so it's much easier. I just come to an excavator, drop the tank on the ground, turn off the engine, open the lid on the tank, grab the cables, hook them up to my starter battery type of thing, and then flip a switch so it starts flowing. The little motor there starts working, a little pump, and that's it. You start pumping. And so I saw the tank only had like 50% of fuel, so I stopped on the way, and the fuel island filled up to the max, and sent a message to the supervisor. I said, the tank is not good, like it's not going to be enough for 3 machines. I said, I'm going to fill it up and I'll be there in 10 minutes. He says, okay. And so I go there, and I see the very frustrated excavator operator, and there's his engine compartment is open, and I say, what's going on? Like, is the machine down? He says, no, it was the service truck. They were cleaning, they were pumping everything out of the tank. I'm like, what happened? He says, well, the previous guy, the guy who I talked to in the morning, the previous guy filled them with gas, not diesel. I said, are you serious? He says, yeah, it was like a mixture, basically. It was like a mixture of gas and diesel, but he didn't give them real diesel. And then that supervisor shows up. I said, really? So how many machines did he screw up? And he says, 3. I said, man. And I said, where is he now? And the guy says, he's gone. So basically my understanding is that they told him to go home. So then I talked to the regular excavator fuel guy who does this, usually excavators, right? And he says, yeah, they told him that this new kid, a race car driver kid, he'll be now in charge of excavators. And so this previous guy, he says, he gave him his tank, which was full of diesel, real diesel. And so this guy went around and he filled up some machines, the new kid. But then he ran out of fuel. So instead of going back to the fuel island and refilling it with diesel, he grabbed a tank where he saw there was something that was like 3/4 full, and he didn't pay attention. He didn't notice that that tank was away, you know, like we have diesel tanks in one area and then there's a couple of gas tanks and they look identical, except the code on the side of the gas tank says 1203. That's the UN code, right, for dangerous goods gas, whereas diesel is 1202. And actually when you open the lid on the tank, it says gasoline only. But you know, I'm guessing he looked at the gauge, you know, he doesn't have to pump, so he grabbed the tank. No, actually, wait a second. No, he grabbed the tank and he went over to the big diesel tank and he filled it up to the max. So let's say it had 50% gas and now it has 50% diesel, and then he went and he scrubbed 3 machines. And so they had to call the service guy and they pumped out everything out of the tank. And I said, and then I saw them later, I said, are they going to be good? Are they going to be able to start? He said, well, we're going to come tomorrow and we're going to prime the system, you know, make sure there's no that bad mixture in the fuel filter, right? Because yeah, so it was not just gas, it was a mixture. So the guy grabbed the wrong container which had gas and he topped it with diesel, and of course that's not good, and so he lost his job. And that's what this video is about. Haste makes waste. Don't be a race car driver on a construction site. Over and out.